Hi, and welcome to Thursday, April 30th. I'm Michael Bean. This is a Confidence on Camera tutorial or lesson. Today, we're talking about industry things. And apologies for everybody who is hoping to have Leanne Lapp today, including myself, but she had another commitment that came up at the very last moment and isn't able to join us. So instead, you got me. I'm Michael Bean, owner and head coach at Biz Studio. You can find out more about me at confidenceoncamera.com or the classes that I run at bizstudio.ca. So the super quick recap overview that I like to hit every time we do the industry lesson, is the actor's food chain, which is producer is in charge of the money, director's in charge of the story, casting director's in charge of the audition. That's who we're getting tomorrow. Talent agents in charge of the actors in charge of themselves. So we've spent a bunch of time in the last couple of weeks talking about what actors can do to be in charge of themselves. And we will, of course, continue to come back to that because I think that it's useful. Today, I want to talk through a project from top to finish. So I have two examples and we can look at scripts. And I want to just give you a little bit of insight into the mind of different people in the production chain, if I can. And I will say beforehand that I have worked as an actor, but I have not worked in any of these other positions. So one of the things that I'm going to continue to do is bring in guests who can speak from their own experience about, here's what it's like working as a producer. Here's what it's like working as a director. We've had a couple of casting directors. We've had a talent agent. And obviously you can touch base with your own experience as an actor. And we've had several actors so far. So got to bring in, a producer and a director, so that they can talk to you from their experience. You don't have to take my word for this. The priority of a producer is, right, the producer's in charge of the money. Priority of a producer is to make their money back, is to find an audience, to make sure that enough people watch their program that they either get funding for their next project, or that this project pays for itself in a meaningful way. So if it's an independent feature, then maybe that producer has put in their own money. Like maybe it's somebody local they've written a script and they've just come out of film school and they've raised money and done this themselves. If it is most of the things that we're auditioning for here in Vancouver, at least prior to the current lockdown, we might see more local production happening just because there is extra capacity and there may be less ability for productions to come from the States up here. Josh asked a really good question today, which is, what is it actually going to look like on set for actors if they lift the lockdown in a little bit? And so I'm going to do my best to get somebody in from the BC Film Commission or the Union of BC Performers who can talk to us a little bit about what that's like for next week's industry session, because I also would love to know about that from somebody who's on the inside. The most large productions that come to town have multiple producers because usually there's so many moving parts, right? So if something comes in and it is a Netflix project, for instance, there might be multiple producers who are attached to it at Netflix, right? It's not any one person who's like, this is my money and I'm making this cartoon, or this is my money and I'm making this TV show. Instead, it is Netflix as a massive network that has allocated some piece of their production budget to some vice president who's they're in charge of development for sci-fi projects. Now, I don't know how they break things down at Netflix. I'm literally just making this up to help give you a sense of how they break it down. But there's going to be somebody who's in charge of all sci-fi projects, and then there's going to be somebody who's in charge of just a few of those projects, or maybe even just one project. And so you're going to have multiple tiers of producer just at Netflix. And then you're going, and so Netflix, they have offices here, but they are obviously based in the home companies in the States. So you might have the person who's in charge of all the sci-fi, the person who's in charge of, overseeing however many projects, and the person who's just in charge of this TV show that's casting here in Vancouver. And those three producers might all have to have a say, from Los Angeles. They might have to all sign off on the main cast. Those of you who were here last week heard our casting director guest no, sorry, week before last, heard our casting director, guest Tiffany Mack, talk about waiting for approval on cast from some of these actors. So a number of years ago, they were casting a project called Project MC Squared here in Vancouver. And I'm going to pull it up on IMDb and show it to you. One of the things that the casting director at the time told me was that there were 11 people who had to sign off on the main cast. So what that meant was, because getting 11 people to agree on basically anything is extraordinarily difficult, they got right down to like 2 or 3 days before the start of shooting, and they still had not finalized some of those characters. Because some of them, they'd seen multiple options, and some producers liked this person and some producers liked this person, and they just had not fully decided on them. I wish that I was able to share with you the tapes that the casting director, shared with us in class, because it was a closed session with just a few of us. He was like, well, let me show you the audition tapes. Like, here's the person who producers liked the best. Here's the person they wanted to cast. Here's the person we actually cast. At the time, I believe he said that it's because there was a toy company involved for the like toy spinoff. They were putting some of the money up. There was the production company in LA. There was the local production company here, and then of course there was like the director and producer of the first couple of episodes. So all of those people had to sign off. And if you look it up on IMDb Pro, you'll see that we've got 6 directors, 13 writers, and 19 producers. Right, 2015, 2017. Right, so in any given year, like 2015, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 producers listed on IMDb, and then there are likely production people who were involved in making those decisions on the administrative level who don't show up on IMDb. Yeah, it's entirely possible. So it is not an overstatement to say that it is possible that 11 people might need to sign off on a character for it to move forward. Now, the producer's priority, and I think this example for me was really illustrative, because the casting director was like, well, here's the person who was producer's first choice. And it was a male character, one of the male leads in the show, and the character was supposed to be, the audition sides were all like him being super awkward around girls, and so it was like he had this whole monologue in the mirror, where he was like sort of rehearsing for this conversation he was going to have with this girl, and then like the girl called, and he was kind of like, and it was 2 pages of monologue. It was very funny. It was all over the place. The person who the LA producers most wanted for the role, and who they were really pushing for, was this extremely handsome, very conventional looking, blonde surfer looking guy. And he showed us a clip of the video, and it was hard to believe that this guy had ever been awkward in his life. He was a couple of years older than the part, and just like slick and confident and handsome and like pretending to be awkward in this way that just didn't work. And so you could see watching the video why like this guy was clearly a skilled actor who knew what he was doing, and he was handsome and charismatic and confident, but he was not the right fit for this character. And so they were like, okay, here's who the producer's second choice was. Here's the local BC person they wanted to cast. And then there were clips of this YouTuber, who has like a huge following. He has like 500,000 followers, on his YouTube channel. And he does like fun, hip, funny videos, and he had like tons of personality. He was like Latino guy maybe, and just like tons of attitude. He was kind of like shorter and funky, and and again, you could see him really trying to be awkward in the monologue, and it was clear that he was a skilled actor and a very like confident and charismatic performer, but you just didn't buy it at all. Watching the video, you're like, okay, I can see why some of the producers are like, no, we can't cast this guy, even though yes, he has a huge following and that will help us sell the show. And yes, he's very comfortable and confident on camera, and that will help the producers like sleep easy because they're like, well, he's going to get on set and he's going to be fine. But they couldn't cast him. And so 3 or 4 days before they actually went to camera and started shooting this character, the guy who was working at the time in a small part on a movie in Victoria, an actor based out of Victoria, in his trailer, like used his phone and recorded himself doing this audition. And it was so alive. It was like you could just see in him how like uncomfortable and awkward and excited he was, and he was just like super connected to it. And when the casting director came in for the workshop, they were like, yeah, the producer saw this tape, they approved him the same day, and then he went to set 3 days later. And so producers, yeah, they're looking for somebody who like has lots of credits or is like super slick because they are playing it safe. They want to know that they're going to make their money back and they're going to find their audience. And so often they're going to lead with that because that's their priority, but that doesn't mean that that's who gets cast. That just means that that's the safest choice that they could make. Now, the director's focused on the story. They're somebody who's like, well, no, we have to believe this guy is awkward around women for his entire character. Like the whole season is not going to work, if we don't believe the first time we see him in this monologue, that he's like enthusiastic and funny and shy and awkward. If it's somebody who's doesn't have the practice as an actor to really embody that, then that's going to be difficult. The casting director in this case was just tearing his hair out and going like, what do you guys want? Like 11 different people are telling me things, like, and trying to find different options. The talent agents in that case, same thing, are in conversation with the casting director, saying, sending their different options in. And the actors down here, are just happy to get the auditions. And sometimes the actors are psyching themselves out. So this is one of those places of like actors in charge of yourself. It can be really easy for an actor to go, well, they're going to cast somebody more like this than I am, right? They don't want me. They want the like slick surfer, handsome LA actor with like all the blonde hair and all the credits. And it's like, yeah, maybe one of the producers does want that, but that doesn't mean that's what's right for the character. They want somebody who's taller, shorter, blonder, less blonde, lighter, darker, like anything, right? It's easy for the actors to psych themselves out, especially if you walk into a waiting room and you see somebody who for some reason like triggers one of your own insecurities. And the reminder to give yourself is that if you come in and really connect to that character, like really tell that story, and especially tell yourself in that story, it is possible that you walk out of the room and they're like, yeah, that's our person. Because they made it their own so much that we watched the story. Oh, Tiffany, oh gosh, I don't even remember the name of this. It was one of these like silly post-apocalyptic comedy movies. She was casting maybe like 5 or 6 years ago, and she'd come in for a workshop with one of my summer intensives. And she was describing the teen boy who they put out a breakdown for him, and she starts describing the character, and she's like, yeah, he's written as like really bold, and he's like this, and he's like this, and then she stopped and said, oh wait, actually no, he was written as like an like risk taker and adventurer, but all this stuff about like him being bold and having all this attitude, that's something that an actor did in the audition room yesterday, and it was just so right for the character. That's who we wanted to use. So what's beautiful about that is this actor came in, read the script, read the breakdown, then brought their own version of that story to it in a way that was so effective that not only did the decision makers say, yeah, this person is a fantastic, viable option, but the casting director who wrote the breakdown in the first place remembered it differently because of the performance that actor did. By the next day, she was like, yeah, this is who the character is, because the actor had gone in and convinced her of that, because his performance felt so right. for the story and for himself. So again, I pulled a couple of scripts from Degrassi, and so because I have lots of them, and it seemed like an easy thing to do. So let me show you a couple of those. So we've got a pretty normal, no, Degrassi, I believe, was casting out of Toronto. I'd have to go and look at IMDb to see who was casting it. Some bunch of the scripts, crossed my desk for a number of years there because I was just sort of acquiring things from my archive. So if we look at, here we go, smallest actor role, episode 711. So 711 would be season 7, episode 11. If you ever see something like this, sometimes it'll say SO7E11, but often it'll just say this, season number, episode number, right? So it doesn't mean that there are 711 episodes of this. It means that this is season 7, episode 11. Cashier, page 1 of 1. Bye guys. The 69.50 in total cash, question mark. And there's more of the scene, but this is the entire thing the cashier has. 69.50 in total cash, question mark. It doesn't say anything in the script about the cashier. It doesn't say age. It doesn't say gender. It doesn't say what they look like in any way. And so this is as open as it possibly gets for a single line of dialogue. So if you are the producer for that, you are not going to get involved with cashier. You have other things on your mind that are probably more important to you. If you're the director, likely you also are not going to get involved with cashier. You don't have a strong feeling about how that impacts your story one way or the other. If you're the casting director, that's where you're like, what? We've got lots of dudes, so we're going to make the cashier a lady. Or we need folks who look more like this or more like that, right? There's too many Caucasian people in the show, and we have to cast somebody who looks like they aren't Caucasian. We need more diversity, which when that word is used in a film and TV context, often is still used to mean not white. And progress is so slow. But it is, it's still some progress. And so that might be like the casting side of things. So they would issue something saying, cashier, 16 to 30, female, open ethnicity. Yeah, and they would put that out. Now, 16 to 30 is a big range. Means that maybe they're not sure if it's a teenager, or an adult, and that's where they're going to get hundreds of submissions because it's a single line. It's not going to waste a lot of the casting director's time if the actor doesn't know what they're doing. It's a chance for the casting director to see new people, and it's just so open that even though agents are really being careful about who they represent and trying to keep a small roster, that they are they can submit more than one person, right? They can submit their 3 of their teen girls who look different and 3 of their adults who look different. And if every one of the 200 agents in town does that, then suddenly there's 600 submissions, there's 800 submissions. There's more than that for the casting director to look at. Now, with something and I don't have a larger role from the same episode, right? But if we look at something like this, here we are. Eli, 16, stares at the clock. These are the Eli sides. Turns to his seat now, partner Claire. And so it's like, okay, it's detentions don't matter to Eli. He tossed the keys to Claire. Do you want to drive? They're gonna skip class and go get pizza. Or he wants to. Claire takes hers. Eli looks down surprised. The thing to know about Degrassi, if you're ever working on one of these scripts in class, is that the romantic element of the scene is every bit as important as whatever serious thing is happening. It's just the nature of these teen dramas. It's like, yeah, like your friend is considering suicide, and like your other friend has like a drug problem, and your parents are getting divorced, but the boy likes you. And these things are weighted equally in some of these shows. So it's one of the reasons why understanding style is important to making your character choices. Right, but if you are looking at the character of Eli, and season 10, we've got page 1, but they might have just lifted these sides and put it into a new program. Now Eli was probably a recurring character. I believe I've got that script because it was one of the scripts they were using for the open call auditions for Degrassi that year. They were putting it out really widely because they wanted to find the best possible person to fit their Eli. So that's when the producer is going to be like, we want them to already have this amount of experience, or like Eli's supposed to have this like attitude, and so we want somebody who's really confident, and so that's why we're looking for resume, or we're looking for somebody who's already got a following, or right. So the producer is going to make the decisions based on, or they're like, or we really need somebody who is half Latino because or more, because marketing this in South America is part of how we make our money back. And that's going to help us find a distributor for all of Latin America, is if one of the leads is somebody who looks like they are Latin. The right decision based on marketing, decision based on are they going to make their money back, decision based on who's the audience and how do we get enough people for it. The director's mostly going to be focused on the story. I mean, obviously they're going to be in conversation with the producer, but the focus for the director is going to be, I want an Eli that I can believe. Right? I want somebody who has this like devil may care attitude, and who's bringing something like unique and interesting to that in a way that fits my story and I believe. Casting director is going to try and take both of those into account when they write the breakdown. And they're going to think they're being crystal clear when they send that out to casting, to the talent agents, and to the actors who are going to get called in. And this is one of the reasons why I think it's useful to understand these different steps on the food chain. Now, if you're the actor, if you're down here, I don't think that you can anticipate exactly what these needs are. I'm not suggesting that you understand this so that you can like pretzel yourself into exactly what they want, because remember, there might be 11 of them, and each of them might want something different. I think that it is just helpful in understanding why it goes your way sometimes and why it is so far outside of your ability to know why it doesn't go your way sometimes. So that's one piece of value in understanding this, and just understanding how that actor's food chain works. So if anybody looks you in the eyes and says, you know why you didn't get that one? I know exactly why. They probably don't know exactly why. Probably they've just decided to know because that's comforting to them, and being uncertain sucks. And so actors and teachers all over the place will very often simply decide, here's the reason. And so often the reasons, the thing that makes acting challenging is that the ultimate casting reasons that casting decisions are made, are complex, involve multiple people, and are far, far outside of our hands. All we can do on this side is do our very best to find a version of the story that fits what we're getting from the casting director, it fits what we're getting from the writer, that adds something, and continue to work on going in with so much clarity with that, that even the people who would rather cast somebody with way more credits than us, they looks at it and says, yeah, you know what? This work comes across so confident that I trust I could put this person on set and it would be fine. Okay, that's our lesson for Thursday, April 30th. Thank you for making time. My keeners, yeah, respect. And tomorrow we've got Jackie Lind, and you can ask all of your good questions. Josh, I hope you bust out your favorite slightly uncomfortable question for casting directors. So you get it for, what'll that be, the third or the fourth casting director you've had a chance to ask that one to? So we'll see some of you tomorrow.